Welcome everyone to our webinar where we'll be talking about reducing model risk through the combination of Domino Data Lab and SAS. Domino Data Lab and SAS come together to combine really powerful frameworks for recording all activity and tracking all of the ins and outs of your model development lifecycle, and then running through the maintenance period of ensuring that these models are well tracked, well documented, and well defined in the model inventory register. To start, we're just going to go into an introduction about Domino and the SAS partnership. We've got a last minute apology from Graham, who's unfortunately come down with an illness, so I'll be doing the introduction section. We'll then hand over to Carsten from SAS, who will do an oversight of how model lifecycle sits within SAS MRM. And then Hans will do a demonstration of SAS MRM working with a Domino model. We'll finalize with a demonstration from myself, which will look at the system of record elements of Domino that allow you to track all of the different actions and activities as a model takes place. And then we'll provide room for questions and answers at the end. Just as a quick brief introduction, model risk is a very evolving field, but something that's becoming more and more pressing and urgent for businesses across the sectors. So previously this was primarily in financial services and insurance, where there was a quantifiable model risk around things like credit scoring models and other areas that there might be adverse consequences from a decision that was incorrect. But now if we think about conventions like GDPR and other regulation standards, we're starting to see a lot more requirement in terms of the ability to explain and describe why a model makes the prediction it makes. And then if we've chosen particular algorithms, then we must show the assumptions and why we think this model is appropriate. So what we'll focus on today is using effective model management through model inventory with SAS MRM, and reducing model risk through these steps. So SAS and Domino join together to provide you a scalable data science platform that allows you to write code in open source language as well as SAS code. It allows you to actually use parameters either from an open source language or SAS and combine them together in the same project. So you can have outputs that are leveraging Python or outputs that are leveraging SAS. Every detail of all of these experiments that take place as we develop against a hypothesis are tracked. So all of the data sets, all of the code, all of the versioning environments, and everything that went into the model result is tracked. We've also got a collaboration engine that allows you to put commentary and all sorts of other insight in there. So if there's a particular result that you'd like to bring attention to, you can do that inside of the platform. SAS on Domino means it's a much easier process for software management and deployment for IT, but it also means you can accelerate model development and delivery across a data science team. So we've touched on the regulation standards that are starting to happen inside the industry, and letter SR 11.7 happened in the US, and it was that organizations needed to be attentive to possible adverse consequences, and they're expanded beyond just financial services organizations. So the key elements of an effective model risk framework is that we've got a really good model lifecycle management. We've got an independent model validation that takes place outside of the team that are developing the model, and we're able to quantify some of the risks that that model goes in. So if we have that framework and we're backed by model governance with the right policies and controls, we're in a good position to answer the question, should we be asked around a particular model, but also for our own sake, we can make this work for us in terms of being more efficient at getting models into deployment and into production. In many situations, companies kind of get stuck in that final stage of taking a model and getting it through the validation process. The Prudential Regulation Authority came out with 4 key principles for MRM. So establishing a definition of a stress test model with a model maintenance inventory, implementing effective governance frameworks, so that's your policies, procedures, and controls, having a robust model development and implementation process, and that means you can ensure that the appropriate use of your stress test models are taking place, and then undertake appropriate model validation and independent reviews to ensure that the model performance is sound, but there's an understanding of model uncertainties. So any assumptions or risks or variations in the model are well understood and documented. As we talked about, an MRM framework is a combination of these tool sets as well as policies and governance. So it's important to note that while SAS and Domino come together to give you a really powerful way of managing your models, your inventory, doing your validation and your quantification, you still need a really good policies and governance layer that goes all the way up to your chief risk officer for this to really function well. For a pragmatic checklist of how you go about each model process, start with a really clear definition of the problem. So Not just a case of we would like to understand how to push more traffic through our retail stores, but really go into the data sets, go into how they've been captured, and in that model definition template, state the business problem, the potential value driver, the purpose of the model, and any of the approaches you undertake as part of your hypothesis testing. And then when you've chosen your final approach, document why that approach was taken. Have a very clear validation process. That means that your external team checks that the model is accurate, but that the outputs also meet the intended purpose that was stated in the model definition template. And this way you've got that real clear ability to hand over between the development team and the validation team around what this model is meant to do. So when they're testing for appropriateness and explainability, they've got far more context around what's happening. Then thirdly, have a really clear model production process that has validation stage gates and documentation standards that allow you to meet these before the model is approved for production. And as we'll see in the SaaS demo, this is made much easier through the MRM solution. Then once you've deployed your model into a production state, and that could be something like an API or it could be an app itself, create a really clear registry that has all of these models deployed inside the company, how the model's being deployed, so what's the end user status and where is the decision being made, and then track, if you can, the relevant usage and performance metrics that relate to that model. And that way you've got a really clear idea of how the model is being used, how the model is being tracked, and also where it's maybe not getting use anymore. And then finally, once all of these steps have been taken, you can do model production. So in many cases, what we see is that this process takes a waterfall approach. We sort of go through our development, so we define our product, we develop our product, and then we go into independent review. And then we go into the regulatory approval, and then we deploy it. And one of the challenges of this timeline is if we find in the independent review or the regulatory approval that we have errors in the way that we've done a model, we have to bounce it all the way back to the define stage. And in many cases, it's not until the asset's considered finished by the data scientists or the actuaries or other model developers that we actually get to that point of independent review. So what we're seeing more organizations undertake is a iterative approach that borrows a little bit from agile methodology, but you'll notice I've not used the terms agile here. But the idea is that you can have model review and regulatory approval taking place in the same timeline as the defined development and production. Now, one of the keys here is that you need to be able to give people access to an environment that's it's the same, if not exactly the same as what their data scientists are working in. And that all of the assumptions, the inputs and everything that would go into, say, a document that would be sent to the validation team about that model are now being tracked inside of an environment that can be used. So whilst in some cases you need to keep the two teams very separate, a toolset like Domino really comes to the fore here because we're able to give you these different roles and you can see all of the ins and outs of how a model is developed and all of the assumptions that are made within that model. So what this means is your speed to value of getting a model out to production is actually increased without compromising the validation steps. Because you're building better collaboration between your data scientists and your validation team, you can build a synergy in terms of the right assets and the right processes that relate to the risk level that your organization is willing to accept and adopt. And then any of the things that your independent review might find can be found as part of this process. So you're not sort of bouncing back to the very early stages of the development cycle. So this can lead to much better results in the model development process. So I'm now going to hand over to the team from SaaS, and they're going to take you through model risk management demo utilizing Domino.
A warm welcome. It's a pleasure to do it with Domino together. We had really great success also at customers, and it makes really sense to work together here. But it is not only to have a better model governance framework itself, also to get more value during the whole life cycle. Also, yesterday we had a discussion with our customers for SaaS model risk management. In this topic, we have also discussed a lot of problems and also how we can solve this. But also there were a big message that we get also big, at the end, big value of that. What we got yesterday also in the meeting is normally that model risk management is a new discipline. Also the regulator, David Palmer, or from the Fed, but also from the Bank of England, the person was there. So we had also the discussion with the regulator. And of course, here is maybe the picture what we should have in mind. Model risk management is more control tower, maybe also a command center where you can have an overview over all activities of the model and all the information. And now we will show you also in the demo later how we can get also now the whole life cycle and how the different systems can interact. Why we need this? Of course, you know all these topics. COVID, yes, you must retrain all the models. You must know which models are not really sufficient anymore. And we are not talking only about risk models or credit risk models. No, we are talking about all models in your company, which are models and which are important. Also, AI and machine learning will bring new challenges for you. And also here you need also an idea how you can mention them. I will not complete now the list and will discuss all the topics. You are more aware of about the topics as me, but maybe only this one. On the left side, in the here you can see technologies is a big topic, and also globalization means production change, globalized risk, not only externally, that you are working together with a lot of other companies and so on, and also, but also internally, because you must work also with different stakeholders. And how you can streamline this whole this process and do it, as David has mentioned, how you can be faster. And what we have discussed with our customers since 8 years is maybe also here a little bit a summary and where we are after 8 years of model risk management. I will focus only on trend 2 and trend 3 today, because these are the main topics. It is not only an inventory to have an inventory of all the models. No, it's more a dynamic control tower or command center where you can really think about the risk and more. And of course, it is a topic how you can streamline the process in this way that you can integrate heterogeneous data science world, different languages, different workplaces, and so on. And here, for instance, Domino and SAS can help you. Why we can say it, as I've mentioned, yesterday we had our customer connection meeting, and you can see a lot of customers have implemented SAS model risk management. And of course, we get also a lot of comments how we should do it and how we should develop our product, and we try to bring it into the system. And this was also a reason to talk to Domino to make it easier for the customer. From our point of view, model risk management is not only to handle the whole life cycle. Yes, this is fine and you must have it clear, but also to have an idea how you can different business objects to a model. A model is in relationship with models, clear. There are upstream models, downstream models, and so on. So we have model systems maybe in place, and you must also find a way how you get a view on how a model is linked with different other business objects. Also with stakeholders, which person is a developer, which is a validator, but who is the owner of the model? And so the responsibilities are important. But you can see also other objects like data, variables, correspondence, model reviews, model validations, and so on, also documents, to get at the end a holistic view of the model where we are. For that, you need, of course, also an idea how you can capture data. Therefore, you need screens, and there you get also information. And maybe there you get also the information what we want to show you, where you find the information in Domino. You want to link them. And we will show this in the demo. You have also workflows to link the different stakeholders, to give them to-dos to work on the model, but also you get at the end dashboards to get all the information on an aggregated level to get an understanding where we have maybe challenges or what is the status of different models and so on. Why we are doing this? At the end, we can see also here the workflow or the model life cycle of a model. But we will concentrate today on the development of a model. But you can see model risk management is not an island that you can say, okay, there's only a governance tool and you can streamline workflow. No, you must have also some interactions with other, maybe with the development environment of a model, how you can link the model and so on. And you can see that you must register a model, that you must approve a model, and you must also do in production the performance monitoring. And this is the reason why we have done this live demo now. And in this live demo, we will concentrate only on the development today, but as you know, we must cover more, but only today to illustrate this. We have two persons which are interacting. The model owner, me will be the model owner, and I will also send the information then to Hans as a data scientist, and the data scientist will work on Domino to develop the model. After he has finished his work, he will give me back performance statistics, so fit statistics, and then the owner, as me, can evaluate this fit statistics against thresholds. And this is the demo flow we want to show you. So now we want to switch to the demo. As you can see, this is the model risk management home screen, but we want to continue here now directly. You can see a lot of other objects, but today we will concentrate on this here. And as you can see here, you have also different other inventories, but we are still in the model inventory. And here we have two models. One model is a Domino Credit 001. This is a PD model for risk rating model for commercials. So this model is our demo model, and this model has been created and also has been approved by model risk management group, Triage. So we have said, yes, let us develop this model. So in the workflow, we were now in the status of develop the model. But as you can see, we have also some information here, also the materiality and criticality level, also a description. And as you can see, also some other information are missing because we are not we have not finished every task, of course. This risk rating will be done in a little bit later time after the validation to say what is now really the status of the model. But as you can see, also the stakeholders are there, and now we want to continue. And as I'm the owner, I want to do now also the development, and I want to trigger now also in Domino Data Lab that we can register this model, which is only on the metadata there, but we want to create now the model. And therefore I want to click here, create Domino project. And as I have clicked this, now we are bringing the information from model risk management to Domino, and I will now give it back to Hans, because Hans is a data scientist and will show you now the work which he is doing on Domino.
Thank you, Carsten. Yeah, so as a data scientist, I'm actually, SAS MRM will not be the primary tool that I'm going to use because I have the task of developing a model. So let me switch over to the Domino workspace. And you can see this is basically my welcome screen. You see the projects that I've been assigned to work on. And this one is a new one. This has just been created by SAS MRM, by Carsten, by the model owner. So he assigned a development task to me. Let me go into that project, and you will see we actually set up some initial content for this project. Yeah, so we provided me as a data scientist. I was provided with a README file. You can see all the metadata that you just saw in model risk management. It's been carried over to Domino, to my environment in Domino as well, so that I, as a developer, I have some context and know what I'm working on. Yeah, you see the metadata, the criticality levels, stuff that you just saw in the MRM environment as well. Also, look at this. This is the project ID. This is actually an important piece of information that links the two environments together. Yeah, so we have a common ID that have both systems. That joins both systems. So the main task that I want to do now is, as a data scientist, I have to do some coding, some work. And in Domino, that means I have to spin up a workspace. So let me spin up that workspace. I'm choosing a size. I'm choosing a SAS environment, clicking on launch. And that means that Domino now provisions that workspace for me. This spins up a new environment containing a SAS engine in it that gives me the tools, the interface to work on my model. And while this is actually spinning up, let's just hop back and let me show you something else here. We have not just provided the developer with a README file, basically. We have also kind of applied a project template to the Domino system. That means we have provided some initial sample data. We've even provided some initial models. Yeah, this could also include documentation. Yeah, it's up to, I mean, our design, what we actually want to initially bring over, make available to the data scientist. The idea is that if I can start working on the basis of a project template, the development work gets more uniform. Yeah, so we have all our development tasks are starting with the same content, basically, and that might make it easier for us to monitor and to administrate that work. And as you can see here, actually from a model governance point of view, we do not really care about the language that the data scientist is using. For this demo, we are going to use SAS, the SAS programming language for modeling, but actually could be Python, just like David said, could be any language that you prefer. Yeah. Okay, the workspace has been spun up successfully. What you're seeing here, this is SAS Studio. SAS Studio is our programming environment in the SAS platform. We do have visual interfaces as well, but for the task now, and also many data scientists actually prefer to have a programming, a coding environment. And as you can see here in the Explorer, this is the same content that you just saw in the workbench. Yeah, so it has been made available to me in that workspace environment. In order to save some time, we have actually provided a complete model. Yeah, it's a very simple model using the SAS language. It's just running on some sample data. It's building a model using a logistic regression. Usually I would have to code all of this, but now let me just run it. Yeah, this should execute quite fast. Yeah, it's just a small data set. And it will provide me with a working model. Might not be the most sophisticated one, but yeah, for the purpose of this demo, it should be fine. Yeah, and as you can see, the model actually produced some fit statistics. Yeah, the maximum likelihood, the R-square. I also have some graphical feedback on my model quality. Yeah, let's not talk about this now. It's a model. It's working, and as a developer, I could say now I'm basically done. My development work is complete. Let's make sure that I'm not losing any results, anything of my work. I have to sync everything I have done so far with the Domino environment. Let me do that here. Yeah, I'm syncing my work. And then I can actually turn off that environment. Yeah, I don't need that anymore. And just before I hand over back to Carsten, let me just finish my work here in SAS MRM. Some of the open tasks that I might still have is, for one example, could be some documentation tasks. Yeah, so something that I, as a developer, might not like, but I still might have to do it. Yeah, like I can just drop some notes about where I am, what stage of my work I have reached, and so on. But actually, more important is I would like to provide Carsten with the fit statistics of my model. So because he's interested in them, he wants to review them. So let me kick off that process. Yeah. So what I'm doing here is actually I'm launching my workspace again on Domino, but this time it's not an interactive workspace. I'm running a job. I'm executing my model again. I'm retrieving the statistics, and then I'm automatically importing them back into SAS MRM. Yeah, so while this is running, it takes a second, but let me show you what that looks like in Domino, switching over to the jobs view. And as you can see, this is what I just a few seconds ago have triggered. Yeah, it's currently still in the preparing state. It will soon hop over to the running and then to the successful state. And at that point, it will also, yeah, it started running now. And at that point, it will also retrieve the statistics. So they are already in Domino. And after that, we will have to automatically transfer them back into the MRM system because, yeah, as I said, Carsten, yeah, so we're done here. And that's actually all I have to do as a developer. And Carsten is now in charge and will like to review what I've been doing. Carsten.
Yeah, thanks, Hans. Now, as a model owner, I want to check what Hans has done. This is the first line of defense, not the second line or the third line. It is not the complete validation, but we will also cover this a little bit later. But as you can see here now, we have also the link here. I could also go to the container and check also the work there. But at first, I want to do it in this way. At the moment, it is not so easy to run. I can check here, for instance, also what happens, what has Hans done, and you can see, okay, he has run a job here, and here at first, this was the first job he has done, and then also he has created the performance measures. So I get also here an overview from model risk management what has been done on Domino. But also now we want to check now 1 second later also the measures, and what we want to do is at the end to check the fit statistics against thresholds. And here you can see now that the thresholds are also here included in model risk management, because why? It is a centralized, of course, topic. And here we have defined maybe some standard measures which we have said, okay, in our bank we should have these measures, or a model should not bring breaches because of these numbers. So we have defined them, and they are here. And now we want to check our measures, which will be sent to our model risk management now from Domino. What happens here in the model monitoring? So this is a new object, and as you can see, we have here created now also on the 15th, you can see also some others. These are our tests from the last days, but here you can see also the 15th of October, where we have created here also a model model monitoring automatically, because we have imported now the numbers. And here you can see also all the information about this. Also, we can do it here for the periodical. This is maybe not the right one, but doesn't matter. Here you can see also the model team, or the team which should now also work on that. You can see also the model which is linked, and this was created automatically during the import. But you can see at the moment there is no finding. It's important for one. Please wait 1 minute and then you can see what happens. And now we want to evaluate the thresholds, and what we are doing now is really to check the imported values with thresholds. And as it is running now, in the background, we will create a new report. We will check it later. But also, after we have created or checked the information, you can see that we have also automatically created a finding that here also breaches or that some thresholds are broken. So we can now check also directly here what is the report, or what is really the topic here. And now if we are opening, or we can, this is now in Excel, but if we are opening this, you can see there is a model ID from Domino, also the version ID, but here are the statistics as you have seen also from Hans. And now if we are scrolling to the right side, you can see also the thresholds are there. And now we can check the thresholds against the numbers against the thresholds, and we get also then the exceeded thresholds also with the different levels. And this is now also then directly done in the finding. So that I've shown you. Now I want to show you also some other topics. Normally you do not want to check it in Excel. No, you can also do it now in interface, so that you get a report. And here you can see also all the breaches, or the summary of the breaches. This is more important for the future if you want to see what happens during the model lifecycle journey. So you can see, you get here all the statistics, also what happens here. And also if we check it in this way, you can see on the 15th we have 4 numbers, and here you can see also the results. So everything is there. What I also want to show you now, as I've mentioned, this model is maybe not only stand alone. Normally models are in relationship, and this is maybe also the data governance, the data lineage, which is asked by BCBS 239. And as you can see, our model, which we have created here, the domino credit 001 is also in relationship with different other models. And so you get also an overview how this model is used in different purposes. Maybe it is also only a model which is used in stress testing, or it is a model which is bringing information to another topic. And also here on the right side, you get the information, is the model, or which data will be used by the model. And you can see here also some information. So you get an overview, and of course you can also do it in this way as you want, and you can see also all the findings. And as I've mentioned, we have created a lot of runs, so we have exceeded in some more than only one run the threshold, so we have also created some findings. So you get more and more information. At the end, I only want to show you also, yes, we have done now the performance monitoring, but at the end you want to do it maybe also in this way, that you are saying, okay, we want to do the full validation, and this is for us a review. And from the review, I've created here, for instance, a validation review, where we are doing, this would be the next step from another person, the second line of defense, in this way. So we would see here also now the information, but here you can also create directly from here a document where you can see, as you can see, I've also created one before, but we can create this. And what we are doing now is to bring all the information which are in here in this environment, bring it to a Word document that you can also store this information in a PDF or in a Word way, or you can also enter here some topics. But it is recommended not to work on this document now, to do it in Domino or also in SAS, to have them there, that you can also recreate this Word document also on a later stage. Yeah, but as we can see here, and this is the summary, yes, we can streamline the process by using Domino and MIM to have an integrated way to get the developer environment and the governance piece together without a lot of overhead for the developer, because the data scientist is not really liking to document his work. We know this, but he will do a lot of things in Domino, and if we can link this information, so also a validator could also get directly this information by clicking on a link, and could also check it on the Domino environment. And maybe, David, this is the reason why you can show it also now, how you would work also in Domino, and how you will show maybe also the topic of how we can store the information and how we can work in Domino. Yeah.
Wonderful. Yeah, really good segue, Hans. So I think that was a really good review of how you can take a model through the development cycle and then push it into the SAS MRM engine and have all of those different validation steps and all of the different statistics you'd want to know and track inside a model, as well as a really good process for making that linear. And I particularly think that view of how ensemble models might fit together in your dataset lineage really gives you a powerful tool for defining and describing a model as it goes through its cycle. So the next part of our demo, we're going to focus on some of the key capabilities that are inside Domino that support that story around keeping a really good track of all of the work that takes place when you're building a model. So we'll touch on our collaboration engine, where people can really organize their work, increase productivity and reuse, but give really good detailed commentary on independent parts of models. We'll go through our reproducibility engine and show how we can find, reproduce, and reuse past work, how we can increase the shared context, and how we can show in flight how the model is performing. And then we'll talk about our model inventory, where we deploy a secure managed model that are automatically registered in an inventory with all of the endpoints and everything you need to know about what's happening inside that model. Inside Domino, we work primarily with projects. Projects can be thought of as an environment that contains all of the code the data sets you're using, all of the descriptions and all the information you might need about that particular project, including things like the environment and what code base it's been written on. So if I come into my customer churn demo, very quickly I can see information about this project. So starting with tags and descriptions, this allows me to very quickly add tags into this project. I can come in here and I can say, have a look at tags that have already been existing, or I can come in here and add tags of my own. So I might want a new tag that might be like SaaS webinar. And then I can add that tag in here. This makes this very easy to find and also filterable for other projects. I'm able to edit a description about the project, and then in my README file, I'm able to include information such as in here, the results that have been tested from this particular churn model, as well as project components. So these tell the person that's coming into this project what the important things are that they need to test or check for things like building the model and things around understanding how this model has been deployed. So as a validation expert, this gives me a very quick understanding of how to look at this project before I've even started interviewing the data scientist. On the side here, I can see that this project has actually been forked from other projects. So if I want to do a review, say this was a Challenger Champion test, I'm able to go back to those other projects very quickly. I can also see things like access control, hardware, and runtime in this project itself. Now, all of these settings are quite useful because they allow us to search for things. So if I come in here and do a search for churn, it'll go away and look at all of the different things that include churn. Now, this can be across comments, project names, your classifications and tags, or anything that's been entered into that environment. So here I've got all of the different examples of churn that have been entered in here. So that gives me a very quick and easy understanding of anything that I might want to check out when I'm doing model validation. The next feature I want to talk about is within Domino, you have the ability to manage and run goals. So if I come back into my lab environment and I attach to my customer demo, in this churn demo, I've actually set a series of goals that would relate to how I need to go about productionizing this. So you can see these down here. I've got model development, prototyping, data discovery, project initiation. Now I've actually joined these to Jira. So I'm able to come in here and open this up inside of a Jira ticket. This means outside of the environment, people can come into Jira and see that this is fully integrated. And for different things like on SD58 retrain model, I might want to add a comment. Retraining model due to recent data set drift. When I've added that comment through and submitted that comment, that will now update Domino. But if I come back into SD58 inside of Jira, I'll see that that comment's actually come through here as well. And vice versa, if I'm inside Jira and I say, as validation team, retrain approved, and I save that, and I come back to my instance of Domino and I refresh this, I'll now see that that tag's been updated with a new comment. Now this gives you a powerful thing in terms of allowing validators to work inside and outside of the environment such as Domino. This means in each of the different stages I can see the status, and these are customizable to your own dataset flow, as well as add goals that require different levels of testing or different levels of authentication. This gives me a really easy way to stage gate the project and ensure that we're following the right steps before we release it to live. Now the next feature I want to show inside of Domino is in the jobs section. Jobs can be thought of as running code blocks or running different jobs that you might want to have inside of a data science project. So here I'm calling a churn API that I've produced, but I'm also doing my weekly data preparation, and I'm doing other things like running different parameters on a prediction model. Now these parameters write a result that's being tracked at the top here. So now very quickly as a model validator, I can have a look at these results and figure out why is there differences between this model test and that model test. So very quickly I can click on that model and be taken to the actual run itself inside the environment. So with Domino, everything is accessible and reproducible. So in terms of that run there, I can see that it was number 16. So I can come down and I can scroll to 16. And I can see there I had higher accuracy. So I might want to understand what's going different in there. So I can test around the other models and I can see that I've got different parameters being stored here. Here I used a deviance of 10. And here I used an exponential of 50. So I can check very quickly what the input was to this that might have given me those different results. Now the other thing that's quite important is I can check all of the input files. So in the case of a data set change or in the case of anything that might have changed in the code, I've got full access to the underlying data that's been produced. So I can come into my baseline file and I'll actually get that displayed inside Domino. And I can compare revisions and I can compare other bits and pieces. Now, this works across data sets and this also works across code. Giving validators a really easy way to go back and check different changes as they were made. Now, the other thing with Domino is all of these activities and all of these jobs and everything that you do inside Domino is stored in a very cohesive activity tracker. So in here, I can see that there's been a recent comment on that run, and I want to follow up with the validation team. Or I can have a look at the fact that I've started a new session or I've unblocked projects. So very quickly, I can run through and have a look at any of the activities that relate. In this case, there was a blocker that was raised, and that's since been passed. Now, when I'm working inside a full data team, this is quite important because I can start to see where other people are taking activities inside of my project. That allows me to see any of the different steps or the different people that have been involved. And as a model validation team, check that proper code review has taken place and that this has been authenticated as a tested and proven model. So that gives me another edge when I'm talking about looking at different things inside of the environment. Now, another thing as a validation team is any of my projects have an instant and immediate status. So I can see here that this project is still to do, but I can also see other statuses that are blocked or done. So if I come out now and I have a look at our control center, inside our control center, I can see the status of all of our projects. And if I'm an administrator, things like compute and spend and other things in here. So this gives me a full view of all of the projects that I can have a look at and see how we're running against. Now, if I come into my project portfolio, I might have a need validation in here. So I've got a validation stamp. So as a validation team, I can come in here and very quickly have an identification of the workload I have to validate. I can see how active these things are. I can see when the last activity was. I can see how many people are working on them, as well as if there's any produced asset types. So very quickly at a glance, I can see how ready something is for validation, but also who I might need to contact and whether or not there's a team working on this or not. This accounts for anything in here, so projects that are blocked or any of the stages that we've set up, and all of these are customizable to your process. This allows me to very quickly set up a model deployment process that, going back to our idea of a very consistent approach to how we deploy models, gives us a very easy way to check quite quickly that we've followed these steps. And we can see in here if we had consistent goals across all of our projects, we would see what stage those goals are at as well. Now, I talked briefly about assets, and assets can be thought of as how you deploy something inside of Domino as an end user asset. So there are 4 ways that you can deploy something as an end user asset in Domino. You have APIs, which allow you to create an endpoint that people can connect to, and all of the information stored within that model is accessible. You have apps, which would be a thing such as a Dash or a Shiny app or some sort of web app that can basically create a front end on top of what you've built as Domino. You have launches, which are parameter-driven ways of allowing people to change certain things. So it might be a date range within a job, or it might be something else. Or you might have a scheduled job that does a database push. So we want to write a score back into a database, and that's how we're going to deploy the results. Now, just to take you a little bit further in terms of validating the end-to-end, here I can see that I've got a churn prediction API, and I want to have a look at it. So I'm able to click through from that view and see what the model URL is. So this is how I can call the model. And very quickly, I can start to have a look in here and get the Python code that I would need or the R code that I'd need in order to bring that into my code base. If I'm working inside of the IT shop and I want to bring that into a Java front end, I can do that very quickly as well. So not only am I getting access to what the model was, I'm also getting access to how I can call it. Now again, everything in here is versioned, so I can see all of the different versions that have been created and any of the details that underlie this, including who has actually produced that version. That gives me a powerful way of going back and working out which of these models are being run. And if I have a look in my control center again, I can see what status these have. So in terms of usage, in terms of error rates, in terms of any other detail I want. So that gives me a powerful way to check the status of models that have been deployed or models that are candidates for deployment. The other feature that we're going to talk about today is where we go into our lab environment and we're looking at our projects. Many times when we're talking about model validation, we're providing copy and paste code out of a different project environment. So we might have some files that we have available, and we've gone into our code and we've taken the prediction code in here and we've copied this out and we've sent that as a document. Let me find a better piece of code. We've copied out this and we've sent this as a document to the model validation team. And now all of a sudden, they need to go through and work out what are the requisite environments and what do they need to set up. Now inside Domino, you don't have to worry about this because the project has a setting that is that environment. So in this case, I've got a compute environment that is SAS Analytics, which will contain all of the runtime variables I need for the jobs and workbenches inside of this environment to work. I can also see what hardware tier it's been run on and anything like the access and sharing or any integrations that are there. So that gives me full understanding of what environment settings have been set up and what I need to think about in order to see this in the right way. It gives me another powerful capability that as a model validation person, I can very quickly run code in here and get to a point of checking the results and checking through the working knowledge and the appropriateness without having to spin up or set up environments myself. So that gives me a really powerful way of checking into these different projects. So these features combine in terms of visibility into code that might be similar to a project I'm working on, visibility into the environment that's being worked on, reproducibility and reusability of other code bases. So I can bring projects in as templates, or I can look at jobs and activities that have been run in the past and understand where those are at and understand if there's anything that I might want to have a quick look at. And this is fully reproducible. So if I want to rerun a model result from 6 months ago, that's very easy for me to do as well. I've got access to all of the files and these are all version controlled. So if I want to go back and have a look at why this was the last committed file, I can see that very quickly in a job as well. So the ability to go through and get context for why a model's being run. And if I had any comments in here, like a comment in this one, I can see some context that was put in here. So this result looks promising, please investigate further. So you've got a full capability of going through and having a look at the different changes that take place and any of the underlying code changes. Now this gives you that context that you might miss when you're developing models. All too often, if we're just looking at the final state code, we're not going to get all of the different tests and experiments and everything that goes into testing and building a hypothesis. So these are powerful functionalities. And then finally, with the activity tracker, I can see everything that relates to the activity inside of the project in one simple view. And I can filter this down to jobs or comments or publish events and very quickly get an idea of how that project's running. So these features really combine to give you the system of record capability that Domino talks about in terms of providing you collaboration, reproducibility and reusability, and that environment control that gives you really easy access to compute resources and reproducible access to those resources. So that concludes my demo, and with that we'd like to invite questions that you might have for the panelists. Domino on platform, so I'll answer that now. The way that Domino works is it works off of a Kubernetes architecture. So that means it can be deployed to premise, cloud, or a combination of different technologies such as, say, OpenShift, which is a VM version of Kubernetes. So the prerequisites are effectively what sort of resources you want to have available. Now this gives you some capabilities like having it over the top of a GPU environment as well as a CPU environment. And then those environments would become available to people inside the, when they're working inside the workbench or the workspace. And that way you can easily scale compute across your projects and environments using the underlying framework of Kubernetes. Kubernetes is just a real easy way of deploying containerized solutions into a application environment. So if you think of it being kind of similar to public cloud where you can spin up and spin down environments easily, Kubernetes gives you a framework that you can lift these capabilities to be on-premise or you can deploy them in cloud. And you get the choice of anywhere that you want to deploy. There's a question around in-database deployment. So we, through the ability to connect with things like the Python drivers and the Python scripts, can effectively connect to pretty much any of the database vendors that are around there. And we have partnerships with vendors such as Microsoft, Amazon, and Snowflake. So there are connection scripts in there. Now, for more information on that, you're able to go into our environment that our documents environment that lets you see all of the different connection drivers and everything else. But generally you would store environment and variables and then push through any of your configuration changes. So your in-database deployment would come from the Python drivers, but we also support, say, ODBC, JDBC, or R drivers as well. PMML format, I'm not sure what that is, unfortunately. Do you guys understand that, Sas?
Yes, that's a shared, it's a common description format for analytical models. So basically it's an exchange format where you can develop your model in one language and then pass it to someone else using a different language.
All right. I'm not sure on that answer from a Domino perspective, but
so we can deal with that on a SAS level. Yeah.
Awesome. Right, no new questions are coming through. So with that, I'd like to thank you for your time today. We will follow up with a recorded version of this, as well as some white papers and some links that you can go for more information relating to the SAS MRM solution, the Domino solution, and how the two work together well. But for any questions, please feel free to reach out, and we'd love to talk to you about some of your challenges that you might have in model risk management. Thanks for your time, and thanks for your attendance.
Thanks a lot.
Bye-bye.